Hello, I'm Shaun Richards of Notayesmanseconomics. What I want to talk to you about today is the issue of house prices. What drives them? How do we get there? What's the state of play? The reason why this is on my mind is this has become a relatively hot topic in my home country, the UK, over the past week or so. You might think that everyone would be busy with Brexit. Not quite. In some respects, it's an example of a good day or good week in this instance to bury bad news. What do I mean by that? Well, you see, the establishment view goes as follows. House prices are essentially driven by rents. That's how they figure it. Now, some of that is true, but quite a lot of it is untrue. For example, one can see of places that are rented, how rents can be an influence. But they take this a step further. What they do is they assume if you own your own place, you pay yourself a rent on it. Now, I think there's probably most bizarre with those that are bought for cash. And that's a reasonable number in the UK. That's between 30 and 40% since the credit crunch. But those that have a mortgage, maybe they have some relationship to rent, but a lot of people don't. And let's face it, so much of the whole issue of house prices is driven by hope for capital gains. If we look around the world, I don't know what the situation is, but in the UK, the view has come forward that in essence you can't lose in the housing market. If you're a millennial watching this, then that's been true in your lifetime, because in UK terms, the last sort of sustained drop was in the early 90s. We did have a dip around about 2009, but very quickly the Bank of England worked to get that rubbed out. In fact, you could argue that was the whole point of their policy. But coming back to my original question, what does drive it? I think that there are various factors. The first, and this is particularly strong in the UK, is the issue of mortgages and mortgage rates. What do I mean by that? Well, in essence, people seem very willing to pay what they can afford. This brings back to Bank of England policy. They've helped drive house prices up by making mortgages cheaper. Not only by reducing interest rates, doing QE, but also by what's called credit easing and the funding for lending scheme. All of these things were to get mortgage rates lower. What did that do? It stopped the house price falls, and then from 2013 got them rising. So that, to my mind, is a big factor here. Another factor would be rising incomes, except we've got to be a bit more careful about that, because depending what inflation measure you use, wages have been falling in the UK. Now, you get a slightly different picture for incomes because there have been changes in tax rate if you go to net income. But that situation is a lot more cloudy than it used to be. So we start with people borrowing what they can and in essence believing that house prices are always going to go up so that they buy. It's almost like a behavioural constraint here, if you want to put it like that, rather than some future expectation of rents. So that's some of the factors that are going on. And let me now throw in another one. In many ways, nothing to do with economics at all. In some ways, everything to do with it. Because people want somewhere to live. Quite like the idea of owning it. The problem, of course, is that it's so expensive, particularly where I'm speaking from currently in central London. Incredibly expensive. But a lot of that's true around the country. Also true across quite a few parts of the world. So in summary, if we look at this through, there's an establishment drive to get you to believe that some future view depends on future rents. Well, until the other week, when I asked one of my neighbours who does rent, I had no idea where I live what the rents were, so I don't know how that was driving me. I suspect many people are like that. The simple truth is that people quite like to buy a place, and when they can, borrow as much as they can. And that's what drives house prices, far more than what we might get out of the economic theories of the establishment. Thank you.